Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Top 10 Nicktoons and Comic Book Adaptations commentary. It's been a whole year since Comic Uno and I have done it. And speaking of which, I have Comic Uno here. So, hi, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing pretty well.
That's awesome. So yeah, it's been a whole year since we did this video together on the Top 10 Nicktoons and the comic book adaptation. So the story behind this was that I thought about this way back in December 2014, ever since I heard about the announcement of Invader Zim having a comic, and I thought to myself...
Still does, too. Still has a comic.
Yeah, it still does have the comic, and it's going very, very well. It's been just incredible. But yeah, I thought to myself, you know, who should I get that is a comic book expert and also likes Nicktoons? And I thought, perfect, Comic Uno. And so I had you over, and we both kind of tossed each other our favorite Nicktoons that we want to see back to back on which ones, and then I kind of put it together, and then eventually, you know, I wrote down the script and I stated my personal opinions on how I feel about the Nicktoons and why I should get a comic book adaptation, and then you were the one who was saying about, yeah, I like this show for this reason, and I think it can be done in a comic book this way, and you were talking about, like, who the person that you wanted to see write the comic. So how did you decide on, you know, which person should write each comic?
Yeah, you know, from what I remember, you know, because it was a year ago, I remember just, like, thinking about the story itself and what writer would be good at telling that type of story. So, like, Legends of Korra, we know that the creators of that show has written comics before, so that was easy. You're just like, all right, you know, Legend of Korra, that's very easy. And then I think Sequel World, Alex Mack, I did one of them. I don't remember who I picked, but so just writers that are, again, good for that theme. I don't know if they like that TV show, but I've seen other comics that are similar to those shows that they have written. So that's kind of how I did it.
Yeah, and I think that when I was looking up some of the people of who you were choosing for the comics, I thought to myself, you know, I think that would be a really interesting touch. Like, one of my favorites that you chosen was our Baltazar and his partner, who you were thinking about doing for Rugrats, and then there was Greg Weisman, who you thought for doing for Danny Phantom. Those were really excellent choices.
Thank you.
And, yeah, I think for Wild Thornberrys, the one that's currently showing up on this one, I think that, you know, I still stand that it kind of needs, like, a bit of a retool, but the person that you chose who wrote the comic for Adventure Time, I think it would kind of give it a really interesting touch, because with Adventure Time it deals with a lot of adventure, and with Wild Thornberrys it also deals with adventure, and I think that that's a really nice touch. And I think that with the Nicktoons, it's kind of surprising that even though that the Nicktoons have had comic strips on Nickelodeon magazine, and, you know, there was one time in the 90s in which the Ren and Stimpy show and Rocko's Modern Life actually did get comic book adaptations from Marvel. One of which, you know, I just found this out, like, I think it was like last year when I went over to MegaCon. I met Dan Slott, and he actually written the comics for Ren and Stimpy, and I was that was actually very, very shocking, because I know he currently does Spider-Man now.
Yeah, no, Dan Slott's awesome. I've met him a couple of times. He's a really cool writer, and I remember him telling me also about the Rocko Modern Life thing. It's so interesting. That's like what started his career, and like you said, now he's been writing Spider-Man for years, so it's very cool to see that.
Yeah, it is very cool, and I'm still so surprised, even still to this day, that, you know, with the exception of Invader Zim, TMNT, and Legend of Korra and Avatar, there aren't a lot of these Nicktoons that have comic book adaptations. And I think with, you know, when I did that list, I thought to myself, you know, these Nicktoons are primed to get comic book adaptations because there's a lot of stories that you can tell about them. And you know, with this one, with the Wild Thornberrys, as previously mentioned, that I think that the adventures can be taken far and the characters should be developed more. It's kind of like in that TV movie, The Origin of Donnie, in which a lot of people really felt for Donnie's character after, you know, throughout the series, he was mostly portrayed as like this, you know, crazy little jungle boy. But, you know, I think that maybe there should be more to it. And I think that when I first came up with the decision of doing that list, of, there could be more things that you should expand with the Nicktoons. And, I
Yeah.
think with the Nicktoons, now that the three original ones are celebrating their 25th anniversary this coming August, it would be nice to see something like that. And it's funny because even though I did say about Ren and Stimpy, I mean, Ren and Stimpy already did have its run in the 90s, and I didn't even mention Doug. What would you think? Do you think, who would you like to see write for Ren and Stimpy and Doug if it were to ever be adapted into the comics?
Oh, I don't even know. That's a good question. Doug's a hard one because there's not. Oh man, you know what would be interesting? Maybe Mark Waid, because he's doing Archie now, and I feel like Archie's kind of a similar feel for Doug. So maybe Mark Waid for Doug. And Ren and Stimpy, yeah, I'd love to see Dan Slott go back to it. That's his type of humor, and it'd be kind of cool to see how they would develop that series in 2016 compared to the 90s.
Yeah, and it's funny because occasionally I would see Dan posting about Ren and Stimpy, some of the comics that he used to write on Twitter. I do follow him there, and he's a pretty funny guy. Whenever he talks about Throwback Thursday, about sometimes that I used to post about these Ren and Stimpy comics, and so yeah, that Mark Waid for Archie, that's actually really interesting. I mean, especially with Archie going in a different direction. There's so many incarnations of Archie. I'd like to see a different take on it, especially with as mentioned with Wild Thornberrys. I'd like to see a retool on Doug, kind of like develop the characters a whole lot more. I take it that for a lot of people, they probably want to see the Nickelodeon Doug and not the Disney version. So.
Oh yeah, totally.
Anyway, so yeah, this one for As Told by Ginger, I'm still really proud of the way I edited it. It's kind of funny because that was kind of like the little spark that got me to eventually do As Told by Ginger month all the way last October. And I thought to myself, I think that with As Told by Ginger, it definitely does need like a nice adaptation because As Told by Ginger did end in a satisfying way, but I feel that the story can continue because, there was a large gap between the series finale in which Ginger is an adult and she's reading the story to her fans as well as her family who's sitting up in front, and you actually get to see like little bits of you actually get to see like things like what was it, like Hoodsy and Carl are news reporters, and you see Dodie married to Chet Zipper. It's like, how did that happen? And I think Hoodsy was wearing a wedding ring. It's like, who is he married to? That's actually really interesting. It's like, I mean, it would have been nice to see Ginger focused on going to college, and then eventually she would write her book. That's why I put that on the list. And I know with this one right here, I know a lot of people were actually pretty angry at me when I said that the animation on As Told by Ginger was not the best looking, but
it was different. It was very different animation.
Sure, it's Klasky Chupo, and Klasky Chupo with its Hungarian background of animation, it definitely was different than, say, Disney at the time. But I would love to see a different take on with the art style of As Told by Ginger, similar to how with Gem and the Holograms, in which it's not the same as the cartoon. It has a different art style, and it's able to expand the story a lot more. Which I'm hoping that maybe it'll do something like that. So.
Yeah, I'm like 50-50 on that. I think it would be, if she's older, I'd say different art style, but they were doing the same time period as the show. I would like to see the animation from the show, I think.
Fair enough. And at least, a little bit more detailed, I think. Maybe a little bit more structured in a way that is a little bit more tolerable for maybe the younger people who maybe haven't seen As Told by Ginger. I think the most common thing that I've seen, I actually put it in the picture in the video, is that please let the lips be a little higher, but still, nonetheless, I'm still infatuated with that show. And right here with Rugrats, yes, Rugrats is celebrating its 25th anniversary this coming August, and I still kind of stand by that. I would love to see, somebody take Rugrats and, do something really special with it. It's funny because there was an art gallery in California in which they did showcase some of the art of the three original Nicktoons, and it was actually really nice. And, it's funny because out of the three original Nicktoons, Rugrats was the one that lasted the longest, and it's about a bunch of babies, and yet at the same time it resonated with so many people.
Yeah, I think, I love analyzing Rugrats. It's definitely one of my favorite Nickelodeon shows, and I think the reason is it's because first of all, I love the animation, the style of animation, how it starts out as this, opening scene's always this major focused thing because it's always what the show's about is different perspectives, and I think that's why it resonates with so many people. That it doesn't just focus on the Rugrats, but it also focuses on the parents, and it's very much again the different points of views, and it's awesome how the writers did that, and to show like this, kind of this, make it how kids can have a wide imagination where adults really can't, it's harder for adults to do so. So yeah, I think Rugrats is just really special. The way they wrote their show.
And not to mention about some of the directions that they went to in the later seasons, like with Chucky introducing the fact that he doesn't have a mom, and, showcasing episodes like the Mother's Day episode, and, he's trying to get himself a mom. It's funny because when I was speaking to Paul Germain about a year and a half ago, the original idea about Rugrats was that, they wanted the mother to be either divorced or dead, but Nickelodeon wouldn't allow them to do that because they didn't want to scare the kids, and so they decided to put in the mom as like an inside joke. Every time that you hear like little snippets of, oh, Chucky said something about his mom, but yeah. But then later on in the revival, when Arlene and Gabor took over a little bit more prominently, then they decided to put in the whole, Chucky's mom is dead, and then there was the Mother's Day episode, and then there was Rugrats in Paris. It was able to expand the stories, and not to mention there was, I've never really been too crazy about the additional characters that they had to do. Like, I'm not a big fan of Dill, and Kimmy and Kira are okay. Taffy was not necessary, but
I agree.
it's but still, I think that I still stand by what I said a whole year ago, that I would love to see them, go back to basics, in which it focuses on the original Rugrats characters, and if they want to add in Dill and Kimmy, then do it in a way that makes the characters more interesting, because everybody made fun of back in the day in which, Kimmy was nothing more than just a female Tommy, and Dill was kind of annoying. But yeah, I think that with the comics, maybe we could have like little sections in which maybe we can actually see from Dill's perspective. Maybe he has like his little thought bubbles, or maybe they could expand a little bit more to the other characters. Like, they were planning on doing a spin-off series off of the Carmichaels. Maybe they could actually do that in the comics. There were a whole bunch of characters that were just as interesting as, the main core characters, especially the adults. And I would love it to see if maybe that would be the thing that they could do for Rugrats if it were ever adapted.
I agree. I think that's a good idea too, just to expand on these characters.
Yeah, and you were saying that the people who should write it was Art Baltazar and Franco, and they did a lot of kid comics. Yeah, a few weeks ago, I was with collaborating with my friend, the comic strip critic, and we were talking about that they were going to be doing Nickelodeon was going to be doing a theatrical movie on Bone, which was a self-published graphic novel by Jeff Smith, and he was talking to me about there aren't a lot of comic strips or comic books that are for all audiences, that are child friendly, because, some of the most popular ones are like Walking Dead and a whole bunch of adaptations based off of that are more for like teenagers or adults. It's like not a lot of them that can be read by both kids and adults. And I think with Rugrats, because it resonated with people who grew up in the 90s, and because the characters are babies and it can resonate with anybody, and because of the lessons of Rugrats and the imaginations that they had with the episodes still hold up, I think that it can maybe be one of those cases in which I would love to see an adaptation of it, maybe, to generate towards a bigger audience again, just like it did when it first came out.
Yeah, no, so true.
So, let's see what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, so with that, with Rugrats, we'll just... I know there's been a rumor for a very, very long time about Rugrats possibly getting a revival. I remember, when you saw in that video earlier that I did a rant about that I didn't want to see a Rugrats revival, which I already said that I've regretted since then.
Hmm.
Because, I'm not gonna state to everybody, it's like, oh, you shouldn't watch it because you wouldn't care about it. It's like, no, I mean, that's not fair. If you do want to see Rugrats, if it ever does get revived, that's perfectly fine. It's just the execution of how they turn it out. I'm just I think that, with if Arlene Klasky and Gabor Chupo are ever interested in bringing Rugrats back for a new generation, I'd be up for it. And, with, I'm still holding my breath to see if maybe, something along the line, whether it be Rugrats or, one of the other Klasky Chupo Nicktoons, that they can come back. They've been doing a lot of TV movies over at Nickelodeon, so we'll just see. Alright, so the next one, Jimmy Neutron. Yeah, it's funny because I think with Jimmy Neutron, I've never really been like a massive fan of it. Maybe because I was in high school when the show came out, but I still think that it has a lot of possibilities for a comic strip. I mean, you have a kid genius, and there's a lot of science stuff, and I think with even though that Planet Sheen kind of ruined Jimmy Neutron for a lot of people, I think that
I just skipped it. I just didn't watch it.
yeah, exactly. Most people, either skipped it or they did see it and they were heavily disappointed. I think it was because the people who created the original Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, they didn't even work on the show. The company was already bankrupt when Jimmy
Oh, wow.
Neutron. Yeah, the company was bankrupt when Jimmy Neutron Boy when the animated series was finished because. The guy who created the show also wrote and directed the Ant Bully, that was when Steve Odekirk bought the company from John A. Davis. That's the same guy who created the classic known as Barnyard. Yeah, everybody remember that. Anyway, so he was the one who created Planet Sheen, not the guy who created Jimmy Neutron. But yeah, I would love to see Jimmy Neutron, come back in some way, shape, or form. I remember there was like a rumor a few months ago that there was going to be another season on Netflix, but that turned out to be not true. But yeah, I kind of, I mean, with Jimmy Neutron, you could do a lot of things with it. You could expand the villains more. You can add new villains. There was a lot of, cool experiments that Jimmy did in the show and in the movie. And, and who knows, maybe similar to Invader Zim, in which there were supposed to be more episodes of the show. There was supposed to be a second Jimmy Neutron movie, Jimmy Neutron: The Search for Carl. Maybe they can actually do like a special comic adaptation of that. That would be really neat.
Yeah, like maybe like a graphic novel or something, if they don't do a whole series.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even if maybe for this, some people, if they want to see more stories about Sheen, then that's perfectly fine, just as long as it's done
I think we're all
well.
tired of Sheen after the other TV show, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows
I'd
exactly.
like to see the girls more. I feel like they didn't really get as much time to shine. It'd be nice to see them.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see Cindy and Libby maybe having their adventures. That'd be cool. Okay, now Angry Beavers. Okay, I feel so dumb when I said about who should be the person to adapt it, because the day that I posted this, my good friend Jim from Manic Expression was like, okay, so Angry Beavers is about a show that has these beaver brothers who make a bunch of jokes, they break the fourth wall, and there's a whole bunch of, like, innuendos. Why don't you get a person who wrote Deadpool? And I'm like, oh,
So true.
why didn't I think of that? Yes! I mean, it would have been cool if maybe, the creator would have came back to done it, because, he's written comics before, and also Micah Wright, he's also written comics. It's like, yes, that makes so much sense. Somebody who worked on Deadpool to write Angry Beavers, except more friendlier and more kid-friendly.
Gail Simone would be a really good pick for that, because she's written a couple of Deadpool stuff, and if you follow her on Twitter, she's hilarious. I think Gail Simone could be a really good Angry Beavers writer.
That'd be cool. I mean, I know that Gail Simone was your pick of My Life as a Teenage Robot, but yeah, I mean,
I still could. Yeah, she can write 2 comics. It's cool.
Yeah, she's done it before. Yeah, she's written like a whole bunch of comics. She's written for like so many comics, it's not even funny. So yeah, she can do Angry Beavers. That'd be cool. But yeah, with Angry Beavers, I still wholeheartedly say that it's still overlooked Nicktoon. I know that it didn't really gain a lot of buzz when it first came out because it was overshadowed by, all the others that came out like later on, like SpongeBob. But I think with the Angry Beavers, I mean, like you were saying before in the video, like, oh, maybe a handful of comics wouldn't be, that would be enough for the Angry Beavers because there's only so many jokes that you can tell, which I guess I can understand that. I mean, unless you're consistent with your jokes, with the breaking the fourth wall and having the innuendos in the background, that'd be, I guess for a while, you could only do it for so long. And, with Gail Simone, I'm sure that she would do it as well. I mean, it would be really nice if, similar to like, some of the episodes in which the Angry Beavers would kind of, have their B-50s horror movie homages, like in the episode The Day the World Got Really Screwed Up, in which they were basically in a B-50s horror movie. So I think that would be a lot of fun. Even if, occasionally, like, some of the creators or even the original writers of the show can come back and work their magic.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's see. Yes, I'm still hoping for Constant Pain to come back in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, let's see. The next one on the list, I believe it was Hey Arnold. Yeah, it is Hey Arnold. So, Hey Arnold, it's funny because when we were talking about, like, we wanted to see Hey Arnold come back in some way, shape, or form, who would have thought that a few months later there would be the announcement of the TV movie, which is finally going to be the Jungle movie. I mean,
Finally.
I never thought this was going to happen.
Oh, same. I mean, I'm a huge Hey Arnold fan. Next to Rugrats, it is my favorite Nickelodeon shows. So, I think the relationships that all these characters have are really complex, and I'm really excited about this movie. I'm really excited. But yeah, comic book, I still want that too.
Me too. And maybe it could be a comic book to lead up to the Jungle movie. I mean,
Yeah, I'd be game for that.
yeah, that'd be awesome because maybe showcase the parents' perspective. Maybe when, we don't know for sure if the parents are still alive, but maybe we'll find out when the movie comes out. But it would be nice to find out some of their adventures because when we saw episodes like Parents' Day and The Journal, they had like really interesting adventures and meeting up with the Green-Eyed People and stopping La Sombra from taking La Corazon. It would be kind of nice to see more expansion of those characters because, I liked Miles and Stella. I liked Eduardo. I liked the San Lorenzo setting. So I think it would be really cool if maybe there were even if there were like a handful of comics, like maybe a graphic novel that kind of leads up to the Jungle movie, because for a lot of people they've been waiting for almost 15 years for this movie to come out, and it would be nice to see if maybe we can get like more bits and pieces of the story. I mean, maybe, who knows, maybe if the movie would turn out to be so successful, maybe it'll lead up to other Hannibal projects. I'm hoping the Batakis, because that was supposed to come out.
Yeah, on MTV, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm still holding out on it, and I'm really excited about the movie, and I'm hoping that the movie will meet up to a lot of people's expectations because it's something that people wanted to see for a long time. Now you said about that, Craig Bartlett, even though that he wasn't a comic book writer, that you wanted to come back. Since then, have you thought about anybody who would kind of fit that Hey Arnold feel?
I think it's so hard because it's such a different show. I don't know. I really don't. I was thinking, I don't know who writes Lumberjanes, but maybe that would be good because, you know what? People write Gotham Academy. I think it's Brendan Fletcher writes it. I think that might be a good pick. I feel like he could do this type of vibe. He also does Pink Power Ranger right now, so he knows how to convert a TV show into a comic.
Yeah, and Brendan Fletcher, I believe, was the person that you chose for As Told by Ginger, basically taking a TV show and adapting it into comics. I mean, if he did it for Pink Power Ranger, I'm sure he could do it for Hey Arnold or As Told by Ginger. That would be kind of cool. Okay, so now we've reached The Legend of Korra, which now, at the time that we were first recording it, I mean, we kind of knew that there was going to be a Legend of Korra comic because the Avatar comics made so much money and it got so many people excited. I mean, we kind of knew this was going to happen, and then eventually it did happen, so that was really excited to see, and it's kind of, I believe, like the first issue or something was like a prequel in which we see Korra as a 5-year-old, which is actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah, that just recently came out, yeah.
So, have you read it?
Yeah, I have.
I haven't read it yet. How is it?
I really liked it. It was my favorite that came out of that whole entire, because Free Comic Book Days, you get free comics, and like Dark Horse and Marvel and DC, they all release, some special comic. And Dark Horse, they had I think it was like Zombies and Plants, whatever that thing is. And then yeah, Legend of Korra is one of the stories. And it was really well done. It was Korra, making a friendship with Naga, and then seeing her grow up and seeing that whole friendship develop. So I loved it. And if that's a testament to what's going to happen with this graphic novel, yeah, sign me up. I mean, already sign me up, but I love Legend of Korra. And yeah, I would really like to see more of her, even if it's just comic books. And I think, the comic book medium fits very well for her.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Avatar. I mean, they're still coming out with comic books.
Yeah, still. Mm-hmm.
There's another one coming out soon, and it's still getting people really buzzed with wanting to see more about Avatar. And with Korra, I can see it being just as successful, because with Korra, there's a lot more of stories you can tell. Because I mean, with just like you were saying earlier about the first issue of Korra, in which it's a prequel and leads up to Korra as meeting up with Naga and developing the friendship. And, like you were saying in the video about developing of Korra and Asami together, and how the world was able to, sustain itself after the whole the whole rebuttal with the Earth Kingdom, and who knows? Maybe we can. I know that Mike and Dante, they're currently not doing anything with the franchise right now, like expanding it even more. But I would love, hopefully someday for it to come out. I know that they had a bit of a rough patch with Nickelodeon, with doing. The Legend of Korra, but I'm hoping, maybe if they're not going to release a new show for Nickelodeon with the new Avatar, maybe they'll do it in comics. I mean, that would be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next one is Danny Phantom, and Danny Phantom, I cannot tell you. I follow Butch Harmon all the time on Twitter, and he's always talking about, like, he always wants to come back to do Danny Phantom as a revival. Everybody's been wanting it. With everybody currently now kind of burned out with the Fairly Odd Parents, just going on its 10th season, and he has a new cartoon coming out called Bunsen is a Beast, and many people are kind of not impressed with it. Even still to this day, I still consider Danny Phantom to be his magnum opus. It's like the best thing that he's ever done. And
yeah, I think it's the best written. Like, I feel like Fairy Odd Parents was the most mainstream out of all of his, but I think the best written is definitely Danny Phantom.
Yes, it is. It's definitely the best, and it's just a shame that Nickelodeon, they wanted the show to be canceled, even though that Butch had so many things that he wanted to write. He wanted to do an additional season, which is why season 3 felt very rushed.
It did. I remember the release of it. I mean, I was young at the time, but I remember even the release of it was very rushed and random, and I could never find the last episode. Just the way they aired it was very bad. I remember that. Season 3 was horrible, the way they released everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, Nickelodeon is to blame for that, because I don't know, they apparently it was Danny Phantom was just too good for them to let it last longer. But yeah, maybe for Danny Phantom, I would love to see Butch. I don't know. I mean, some people want to see a reboot of Danny Phantom. I always wanted to see like a continuation, because
yeah, me too.
or if not a continuation, then maybe more developed season that was supposed to be the last season of Danny Phantom, like the adventures that Butch wanted to write for the original show, but he never did have the chance to. Just expand, and maybe like taking place like, after season 2 or 3, and maybe having like a season 2.5 or something, in which it expands the story a lot more, and then it leads up to the series finale, when everybody eventually finds out that he's Danny Phantom. That'd be nice. And
I think, honestly, they could do a comic after that, I think. Because, think of, I don't know if you watch Ben 10, like that type of show. Like, after everyone found out, it was still interesting. So I feel like they could totally do a comic about that. That's something I would like to see.
I would love to see that too. And with Greg Wiseman, your choice of who should write it, I think that's great, because he's always that kind of person who likes to delve deep into a big universe and a whole cast of characters. And I think that Danny Phantom is a great match for that. And now we have My Life as a Teenage Robot. Again, I really find it to be a criminally overlooked show. Definitely overshadowed by programs like Jimmy Neutron, Fairly Odd Parents, and Danny Phantom.
Yeah,
It's
not
a
enough people talk about this one. I remember this also was when it was ending. It was airing at like 2 o'clock in the morning. The last couple of episodes, I remember that there was like a whole block of episodes that didn't air. It's such a good show. It was really well written.
Yeah, I feel that way too, and
The animation was unique too.
yeah, it was unique. It went to that classic 1960s style, sort of like Astro Boy and the Mac Fleischer cartoons, and it had a unique style to it that felt nostalgic, but at the same time felt really new. And it's funny because, we were talking about this in which, now women are reading more comics than ever before, and it would be nice to kind of see a comic book series that, young kids can be able to get into. And, XJ9 or Jenny from My Life as a Teenage Robot would be a really nice role model. Especially since it's, I mean, you get like you have like the famous superheroes like, Wonder Woman and Spider-Gwen and Miss Marvel. And, it's nice to kind of have like a superhero who's not, from the Marvel or DC universe to kind of expand the whole, hey, girl power, everybody loves to see a female, kick butt and fight crime. And you were mentioning about, how the characters were really cool, and also you were talking about, like, the Crust Cousins, about how they're a lot of fun, and, they're being all stylish with their fashion, and they're very stuck up and snooty. And that'd be kind of fun to see. Maybe with her, with them bantering with Jenny, and then we get to see more of the villains, like Vexus from Cluster Prime would be cool, and all the others. So I would love to still see My Life as a Teenage Robot adapted. That'd be really different for Nickelodeon, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see, and again, your choice of Gail Simone was a really nice choice, because I know that she does write a lot of comics that features a lot of females, and she knows how to write them very well. And with My Life as a Teenage Robot, I would like to have it expand a little bit more. It's like it had a nice balance of comedy and drama, as well as action moments, but I think it could be delved in a little bit more. Maybe see Jenny possibly struggling even more, not just as a teenager, but also as a robot. I mean, even though that she always was proud of being a robot, it would be kind of nice if every once in a while she kind of like feels the struggle of that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, now we finally get into number one, which was actually my choice. I was the one who chose the Modifiers, because the Modifiers was a rejected Nickelodeon pilot from 2007 that Nickelodeon didn't want to do because it had a female protagonist, which is probably one of the dumbest reasons on why you should cancel it. Yeah, it was created by Chris Riccardi and Lynn Naylor, who worked on Ren and Stimpy, and they had this really, really awesome plot about this agent who disguises herself, and she's trying to get this artifact known as the All-Seeing Eye, which can grant you any wish that you desire. And it had this really nice little robot sidekick, and the villain was also really cool, Baron Vane. And I think that in this day and age, we're a lot more open-minded to see more females being prominent in comic books. And this is a really interesting case in which, you have a combination of, like, you have comedy, you have this really expansive world with gorgeous animation. I've even stated that that's, like, the best thing in the Modifiers, because, I mean, the premise was awesome, but they easily could have delved with it a whole lot more, but Nickelodeon never gave it a chance, which is a shame. And from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like it's going to be given a chance anytime soon, but I would love to see them tackle this. I mean, if we can get the original creators to come back, that would be great. But just from that premise alone, Comic Uno, who do you think should write it if given the chance?
Wow, yeah, I've never even heard about this until now. I don't know, but honestly, this reminds me of, I don't know if you ever heard of, like, the Eltingville Club. It was going to be a cartoon on MTV. and only had a pilot, and then it ended up becoming a comic book, and their comic book is still going on. So this kind of reminds me of that, like, you know, things that almost became a TV show, but ended up becoming a comic instead. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Interesting. So yeah, if there's any buddy in the comic book industry who likes like beautiful, multicolored, detailed animation about a an agent superhero who's a female and who has a ring that can change herself into multiple disguises and
I
has a
just
little.
thought of somebody.
Oh,
I just thought of somebody. Babs Tarr, I know she does art, but it'd be kind of interesting to see maybe her take, because again, you're just talking about like colors, and that just got to me, like, because Babs Tarr does she did Burnside Batgirl, and I feel like that could be really similar to what
yeah,
we're
I
talking
mean,
about.
even though that, I mean, the from what I saw in the pilot, it's pretty standard. I mean, you have a female secret agent, and the pilot was showcasing about, you know, the bad guy stole the artifact, and they're trying to get it back, and, you know, there's like a lot of slapstick, there's some comedy, there's some quick-witted jokes, but the thing that really stood out for a lot of people was the detailed, multicolored animation with all these different designs and variations. That's what made it stand out for me. And I would love to see somebody come and tackle that. I mean, I think that would be a really awesome premise to, you know, have it adapt. Anyway, so yeah, that is actually the end of that video, and the song that's actually playing is actually a parody of a song, which is basically singing about comic books, and I thought this was perfect to put in as the outro. And so yeah, any final words that you want to say right before we go?
No, and just thank you for having me on again. It was a lot of fun to revisit the video.
Awesome. And is there anything that you're going to be doing that people can see you doing, or any you have any social media that people can check you out at?
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter at Comic Uno. Check out my YouTube channel. You can just type in Comic Uno, you'll find it. But it's He and Clay Heroes. Also, check out my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. That's issues 1, 2, and 3 is actually coming out this Wednesday. So, yeah, check that all out.
Alright, and yeah, that is the end of this commentary. It was the first video that I did that was over 10 minutes, and it became the start of a whole bunch of videos that came out. And yeah, this was, it's still a video that I'm still very proud of, and I'm hoping, and, you know, maybe someday I can be able to expand it to more videos that I can still feel really proud of. So thanks again, Comic Uno, for coming on by. And
Thank you for having me.
And I hope that you guys enjoyed the commentary, so take care.
What you know about wearing a callop on your noggin? What you know about Joker beating up on Robin? I'm reading, I'm searching up that Gotham. One man's Nightwing as another man's...